Welcome to the garage, friends. Today's project is going to be a quick brake job, pads and rotors, upgraded rotors on this 2018 Subaru Crosstrek here. This is my wife's car. As you can see back there, we got the vet. It's going to be a quick job here, and I'll go through the process. I'll show you what I'm upgrading to, because last year I did the brakes and rotors, so pads and rotors, and the rotors are now warped. For whatever reason, there's some heat damage. There were Raybestos power stop, or whatever they called, new pads, new rotors, and now there's a lot of vibration, and I'm pretty sure it's due to warpage of the rotors. For whatever reason, this time around, we're going to go through the break-in process just in case, to assure that there's no heat damage and these are broken in correctly. They're drilled and cross-slotted, or whatever, slotted and drilled, cross-drilled. So should improve cooling, ventilation through the rotor, and help not build up so much heat. But let me go ahead and show you those, and I'll show you the process really quick. Alright, so here we have the set of parts I'll be using. These are the R1 Concepts brake pad kit and rotor kit. So this came all in one package. It was like $300 something, and 4 rotors and the pad kit for front and rear. Also comes with the shims, as you can see right there, which are important to replace because those break in and wear out. But this is the cross-drilled and slotted rotor I was talking about. So this is going to be offer some higher performance. As you can see, there's like it's ventilated throughout the cross section, so you have these fins for ventilation. But the main difference is that we have the additional features here, the slotted cut and the cross drilled. So that's going to allow gases and heat to escape underneath the brake pad itself. Okay, that's why you have these angled cuts in here into the rotor face. But that's what I'm putting on. Like I said, R1 Concepts. I got it off of Rock Auto. And a nice little kit. So I'm going to go ahead now and show you what has to be done for disassembly really quick, and the tools needed, and let's get on with the process. Okay, so here we have the wheel off, got everything ready to go. We have a 14mm socket needed for the actual caliper itself, the caliper mounting bolts. 14mm, and then 19mm for the caliper bracket, which is this piece right here. Okay, I'm not going to show the full disassembly of this. This is very straightforward. There's 2 bolts holding this on, and then 2 bigger bolts, the 19mm, holding on the bracket itself to the knuckle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove those 4 bolts, and then I'll update you guys what the next step is. Alright, so the next step would be to, once you loosen your caliper mounting bolts, you will realize that it's going to be very hard to remove the actual caliper because it's compressed and, under tension, fluid pressure. So that's why you have this here. Take a 6-inch C-clamp, grab on the back side of the pad itself and to the solid part of the caliper itself, not on where the hose mounts, but the actual metal solid piece, a flat, nice big flat back there, and then go ahead and turn your C-clamp, and that's going to compress the pistons to loosen the tension on this. And also what you want to do, before you do that and go ahead and tighten that down, come up over here where you put your brake fluid in there, take the cap off to relieve the pressure, okay, and just leave it on there kind of loose. What's going to happen is, as you're compressing that C-clamp, it's going to displace the fluid back into the system, and this is going to rise up. And if you have the cap on, it's just going to build up excessive pressure. Okay, so that's why I go ahead and just crack that cap, open it up to the atmosphere. But also remember to make sure to close this once you're completely done with the whole process of doing your brakes. That way you don't have an open cap situation. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on going and start disassembling everything. Alright, so here we have the caliper bracket removed. As you can see, it's on the ground right here. You're going to want to use a 1/2-inch drive with a 19mm with an extension to get that 19mm bolt for the caliper bracket. The 14, you can use a 3/8 drive, it's just fine. As you can see, I removed those hardware shims. Okay, so those are going to be tossed. Replace them with the new ones. I also noticed when I took it apart, the brake pad on the inside, there was less wear at the top than there was at the bottom. Okay, so that could be indicating that the caliper itself, that there's two pistons, top and a bottom piston. It looks like the bottom piston was either sticking. I believe it was sticking because it was basically rubbing more so on the bottom than it was on the top. On the top, it looks almost like brand new thickness compared to the outside pad. The outside pad is nice and consistently one thickness. The inside pad, not so much. There's definitely a lot more wear at the bottom than the top. So that's indicative of possibly a sticky bottom piston. So that's what I'm discovering as, you know, I'm doing the first set here. I wonder if it's the same case for the other side. We'll see. But also one thing you want to do on the caliper bracket is this floating pin here, okay? You should be able to press this in and it should be extend out without seizing up. There's a bellow dust seal here, so what you want to do is pull this out and make sure there's plenty of grease in there. So if you encounter that this here is dirty, then go ahead and fully clean that pin and then apply brand new high temp silicone grease made specifically for doing brake jobs. Okay, it's a different type of grease. It's meant for higher heat, and that's what we would use for the actual floating pin. So I'm not gonna go ahead and break that down, but these should push in and out very easily. If they don't, go ahead and clean them and lube them back up with some fresh grease. So the next step would be to throw on the new parts and start reassembling everything. I'm going to go ahead and take care of some new grease for this. Even though they're okay, I'm going to go ahead and still clean them off really quick and apply new grease because I want to make sure that they float like they're supposed to. Also, another thing is inside here, hit it with a wire brush, okay, where the actual shims will sit. Go ahead and clean out the channel there, top and bottom. I'm going to go ahead and do that and start reassembling everything and letting you know what the outcome is. Okay, so here we have a completed and assembled front rotor and brake pad kit installed. All new hardware shims, and torque down. So your 14mm is going to be 20 foot-pounds, and then that bigger 19mm for the actual big bracket to the steering knuckle is 81 foot-pounds. Okay, and that's where you're going to need to know to actually finish the job. I'm going to go ahead now and do the same thing to the other side, and then after that I'm going to break into the rears and show you the rears. Essentially, it's the same process, just slightly different. They're not as big. But let's go ahead and take care of the rest and get to the rears. Okay, so moving along to the rear brakes, it's going to be the same process as the front, but we have a 17mm bolt instead of a 19mm. Okay, slightly smaller brakes in the rear because naturally rear brakes are a little bit on the smaller side than the fronts. Fronts do more of the work. And in this case here, we have a drum and disc rotor combination here. So your drum brakes, which are on the inside here, those shoes will activate the e-brake. Right now, the e-brake is not on, so keep the e-brake off and you won't have a problem taking this rotor off. If you have the e-brake engaged, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have this rotor not be able to come off because it will be tightened by the brake shoes. Okay, which is the drum brakes portion of it. So I'm going to go ahead now and start disassembling, doing the same thing as I did in the front. Okay, fronts went smooth. Same thing here. I'm going to get this done and then give you an overall recap and summary of the whole process and, you know, go from there. All right, so we have the rear brakes done. Everything went well. The rear brakes actually went faster than the fronts for whatever reason. the pads themselves and the shims went together a lot easier than the fronts. The fronts were kind of really tight fit, trying to slide in the pads. But anyways, your torque for the 17 millimeter is going to be 70 foot-pounds and 20 for the 14 millimeter, just like the front. The 19 millimeter bolt was 81 foot-pounds. But there it is. You have to replace and take off the plug, this rubber plug, from your existing rotor and put it here. Otherwise, you're going to have an open hole there. This is to adjust the drum brake, the e-brake adjustment. But there it is. Everything's done and said for. Really easy process. I did notice that like one of the pads in the front was split right in half. I don't know if that was causing the complete vibration issue, but when I went ahead and pulled the pad off, it actually was the actual pad material, the organic semi-metallic material was broken right in half where the split is, because it's like separated in two pads on the one surface. It was split right in half and it was loose. Okay, and it put a bunch of wear on the pad itself, so it's been like that for a while. So with that being said, I hope I have better luck this time. I will go through the break-in process. I am not going to explain that. You can just look that up. There's plenty of information on the internet about break-in process when it comes to brake pads and rotors. But that's going to be it, guys. This was a really easy install and replacement on a 2018 Subaru Crosstrek. And if you have any other questions or comments, please place them right down below. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.